said in that speech, you know, and this probably ruins my chance of getting nominated for an Oscar, but sure
and then
enough,
I didn't get nominated for Oscars for years.
You think that had something to do with it?
I don't know. What do you think?
Eddie Murphy is one of those rare performers who changed comedy forever. From his explosive stand-up specials, Delirious and Raw, to unforgettable film roles in Beverly Hills Cop, Coming to America, and Shrek, Murphy set the gold standard for what it meant to be both a movie star and a comedian in the 1980s and 1990s.
And you go in and
you
do
get
it.
lost in it?
Yeah, and I have a headache afterwards, and it's all really because it's really the donkey is on 10, and all of it is, and he'll be singing and doing all that stuff, and so it's like the sessions are like a blur. You know, lots of times I'll hear the movie and I'll be like, wow, I don't even remember saying that. And I'm just stuck.
His charisma, his gift for voices and impressions, and his fearlessness on stage made him the defining comic voice of his era. Recently, sensational headlines claimed that Murphy had revealed the 10 comedians he hated the most. It's the kind of story that travels fast online, but when you look closely, there's no evidence it ever happened. Eddie Murphy has never sat down and published such a list. Instead, his real story is far more complex and far more interesting. Over the years, Murphy has openly discussed his admiration for his idols, his disappointment when they turned on him, his feuds with peers, and even the moments he cringes at in his own early routines. This video dives into those real stories. Some involve tension and hurt, others deep respect and gratitude.
Yeah, you know, when I met James Brown, I had met him before. I did a movie and James Brown was in the movie. And he came up to me afterwards and he was like, you should do my life story.
Together, they reveal not a man fueled by hatred, but one shaped by rivalry, resilience, and growth. Number 10, laughing at the critics and his own flops. If you want to understand Eddie Murphy's resilience, look no further than how he reacts to failure. Many stars bristle at bad reviews or lash out at critics, but Murphy has often chosen to laugh instead. A prime example came with his 2007 comedy Norbit. The film was panned, audiences mocked it, and it went on to sweep the Razzies, Hollywood's annual parody awards for the worst movies of the year. At one point, Murphy was even handed the ignominious title of Worst Actor of the Decade. Instead of sulking, Murphy treated it like another punchline. They gave me Razzie Awards for Worst Actor of the Decade, he recalled in an interview. And I was like, come on now, shit ain't that bad, so they were just hating. He insisted he still enjoyed Norbit and wasn't embarrassed by it.
The first time I saw him, I had done a charity, I had donated to a charity, so I asked him to do this record, and he said, yeah, I guess so, yeah, we flew out, and it was the first time I saw him, was in the studio at his house.
In fact, Murphy has said he includes Norbit among his personal Mount Rushmore of films that define his career.
The Mount Rushmore of my movies.
Yeah.
Coming to America.
Yes.
The Nutty Professor. Shrek. If I say 48 Hours, I can't say Trading Places.
Pick one.
Let's say 48 Hours.
Alongside classics like Coming to America, The Nutty Professor, Dreamgirls, and his voice work as Donkey in Shrek. For him, even the so-called failures are part of the journey. By laughing at his critics, Murphy proves that not even Hollywood's harshest jeers can dim the shine of a true comic legend. When a comedian openly laughs at their own failures, does it make you respect them more, or do you think it's just damage control? Number 9. Standing up for Andy Kaufman. Not every story about Eddie Murphy involves clashes or criticism. Sometimes what stands out most is his instinct to defend fellow comics, especially the ones who didn't fit the mold. A perfect example came in 1982 when Saturday Night Live held a live audience vote to decide the fate of Andy Kaufman. Kaufman was one of the most unconventional comedians of his era, blending performance art, pranks, and uncomfortable stunts that often blurred the line between reality and parody. His antics divided audiences, and eventually SNL's producers leaned into the controversy by asking viewers to call in and vote on whether Kaufman should be banned from the show. Murphy, who was still in the early years of his own meteoric rise, didn't like the idea of throwing a peer under the bus for entertainment. On stage, he joked that anyone who voted against Kaufman would have to answer to him. "If y'all vote Andy off the show," Murphy quipped, "I'm gonna kick somebody's ass." Though delivered with a smile, the moment showed Murphy's willingness to stick up for someone he respected, even if that comedian was polarizing. Kaufman ultimately lost the vote and was banned, but Murphy's defense didn't go unnoticed. It reflected something bigger about his character. Even as a young star, he valued loyalty over cheap shots. Instead of distancing himself from a controversial comic, he stood in solidarity, recognizing that comedy thrives on diversity of style, not conformity. Would you defend a colleague who divided audiences, or keep your distance to protect your own reputation? Number 8. The studio-imposed casting of Louis Anderson. Sometimes the conflicts in Eddie Murphy's career weren't with other comedians at all, but with Hollywood itself. A telling story came out while promoting Coming to America in 2021. Murphy and his longtime collaborator Arsenio Hall revealed that back in 1988, when they were making the original Coming to America, Paramount Pictures insisted the film include a white actor in the cast. The studio executives gave Murphy and Hall a list of options and made it clear that diversity in Hollywood still came with strings attached. Faced with that pressure, the two comedians picked Louis Anderson.
For a game show, which is one of my loves, and I live in Vegas, which is...
Do you like it there?
Well, I like no traffic compared to here. I mean,
Yeah, that part would be
I
good.
left at 1 this morning to get down here.
As Murphy recalled, they actually liked Anderson and thought he was funny, so they agreed he could play a small part as the awkward fast food worker at McDowell's. Anderson ended up delivering a memorable performance, but the decision wasn't Murphy's idea. It was a compromise forced by the studio.
They started the whole thing. They started feeding us when we were kids. It's like dope. When you drive by McDonald's with your parents, Dad, McDonald's! Dad, McDonald's!
Years later, Hall admitted he had to force the Louis Anderson situation because Paramount wouldn't back down. Murphy himself explained that he wanted to be honest about the casting, not because he disliked Anderson, but because it revealed the reality of how Hollywood operated. What makes this story interesting is that there was no personal animosity between Murphy and Anderson at all. In fact, Murphy spoke warmly about Anderson, especially after his death in 2022, calling him a genuinely good guy. The issue wasn't Anderson. It was the industry's reluctance to trust a mostly black cast to carry a major studio comedy. Do you think actors should accept studio interference if it means keeping their movie alive, or fight to keep full creative control? Number 7. Confronting his own past jokes. Eddie Murphy has always been bold on stage, but with time comes reflection. And Murphy has been candid about cringing at parts of his early work.
A lot of people talk about racial prejudice, and some people have gone so far as to say that there are actually two Americas, one black and one white. But talk is cheap. So I decided to look into the problem myself, firsthand, to go underground and actually experience America.
His 1983 stand-up special Delirious is still considered one of the most iconic comedy performances ever filmed. Yet it also contains homophobic and offensive material that feels jarringly out of step today. Looking back, Murphy has acknowledged this openly. In a 2019 CBS Sunday Morning interview, Murphy admitted, "Some of it, I cringe when I watch it, like, oh my god, I can't believe I said that." He stressed that he was a young man at the time, fresh off Saturday Night Live and trying to shock audiences.
Some of it, I cringe when I watch it. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that.
I mean, people were picketing you.
Oh yeah.
Did that bother you?
No, in the moment you kind of was like, it's just, it is what it is, you know?
While he doesn't erase those routines, he frames them as part of his growth. "I was a kid," he said, noting that context matters. Murphy has also made clear that when he eventually returns to stand-up, something he's teased for years, his material will reflect who he is now, a father, a grandfather, and a man in his 60s. The wild provocateur who strutted across the stage in a red leather suit has matured. He no longer wants to lean on cheap laughs that come at someone else's expense.
No, you know what's interesting? After I said that, it went the exact opposite way. There was no mention. It was almost like I wasn't at the awards that night. The next day, there was no mention of it in the paper.
This willingness to admit mistakes sets Murphy apart from many comedians who double down when challenged. Instead, he treats his past routines as snapshots of another era, uncomfortable in hindsight, but honest in showing where he came from. It also reinforces that Eddie Murphy's story isn't one of hatred or grudges, but of constant evolution. He's still the same sharp observer of human behavior, only with more wisdom and empathy guiding the jokes. When artists look back and regret their old material, should we judge them by today's standards or by the era they performed in? Number 6, paying tribute to Richard Pryor, despite the tension. Few relationships in Eddie Murphy's life have been as complicated as the one he had with his idol, Richard Pryor. Murphy grew up worshiping Pryor, studying his albums and admiring how he shattered taboos with fearless honesty.
I do too. I love Bill Cosby's show. I've been a big fan of Bill Cosby all my life. Never met the man before, but he called me up about a year ago and chastised me on the phone for being too dirty on stage. And it was real weird because I had never met him, and he just thought he should call me up because he was Bill and tell me that he did about what.
By the time Murphy became a star himself, he considered it an honor to work alongside Pryor in Harlem Nights, 1989. But behind the scenes, the admiration was not mutual. Pryor, already in the twilight of his career, reportedly resented Murphy's meteoric rise. Murphy later admitted he was stunned to learn his hero didn't like him, confessing it was real weird to find out your idol hates you. Yet, despite the sting, Murphy never stopped honoring Pryor's influence. When Pryor passed away in 2005, Murphy spoke publicly about how deeply he respected him. He called Pryor the gold standard of stand-up and flatly described him as a genius. Everybody who came after him does a shade of what he did, Murphy said, acknowledging that his own career was built on the trail Pryor blazed. This ability to separate personal disappointment from professional admiration reveals a lot about Murphy's character. While he may have felt hurt, he never dismissed Pryor's contribution. Instead, he placed him on a pedestal and continued to credit him as the comedian who redefined what was possible on stage.
Great performance, but 4 of the whitest people I've ever seen in my life. But the man that most comedians selected to receive our Lifetime Achievement Award this year is a performer who inspired me personally and a lot of other comedians, Mr. Richard Pryor.
The tribute underscores that Eddie Murphy doesn't carry grudges in the way gossip headlines suggest. Even when a relationship soured, he could still bow to the artistry that inspired him in the first place. In the end, Pryor remained the blueprint, the figure Murphy measured himself against, no matter how complicated their personal rapport became. Could you still pay tribute to someone who openly disliked you, or would the personal grudge outweigh their influence? Number 5, admiration for Red Foxx. Not every story in Eddie Murphy's career is about rivalry or resentment. Some are about pure admiration, and one of the most heartfelt examples is his relationship with comedy legend Red Foxx. Known as the groundbreaking star of Sanford and Son, Foxx was a giant in stand-up before television made him a household name. For Murphy, Foxx wasn't just funny, he was the funniest person he had ever met. On Jimmy Kimmel Live, Murphy recalled that Foxx didn't even have to try. Without even trying, just naturally funny, everything that came out of his mouth was funny, Murphy said.
He said, I went over there, he made me Franks, ballpark Franks. Yeah, that's it. That's why I'ma always be cool with Eddie, because he made me them Franks.
This kind of natural comedic presence was something Murphy deeply respected. He had built his own reputation on sharp writing and fearless delivery, but Foxx reminded him that some people were born with a gift that simply couldn't be taught. Their relationship also carried a tragic note. Foxx died of a heart attack in 1991 while working on the set of The Royal Family, a sitcom that Murphy was producing.
Red Foxx collapsed last night during a rehearsal of his new comedy series. People best remember Foxx for his junk peddler role in TV Sanford and Son, which ran for 5 years back in the 70s. Foxx was born in St. Louis, but later ran away from home to become a comic. Today, Bob Hope called Foxx a natural comedian, and the world will miss comics like him. Red Foxx was 68 years old.
In a bittersweet twist, the cast and crew at first thought Foxx was joking when he collapsed, because his timing and expressions were always so comedic. Murphy later reflected on how surreal it felt to lose someone who embodied comedy so thoroughly that people mistook his death for another gag. Murphy's admiration for Foxx reveals another layer of his character. While headlines often highlight feuds, the reality is that he has just as many stories about revering his elders. Foxx wasn't someone Murphy clashed with. He was someone Murphy placed on a pedestal. Remembering Foxx with such warmth shows that Eddie's comedy legacy isn't built on animosity, but on respect for the giants who paved the way before him. Do you think comedy greatness is built on skill and craft, or is it something certain people are just born with? Number 4, a humbling encounter with Rodney Dangerfield. Long before he became a superstar, Eddie Murphy was a teenager trying to break into New York's competitive comedy scene. In those early years, he crossed paths with Rodney Dangerfield, a veteran comic already famous for his self-deprecating, "I don't get no respect" persona. Murphy idolized Dangerfield and hoped to impress him when they shared the stage at a comedy club.
So I met Rodney Dangerfield. I'm like 16, 17 years old, and I'm getting ready to go up on stage, and Rodney comes and he bumps me, and he goes, "Hey, you can't go up. Rodney's going on." So Rodney goes on, and he kills, and I'm like, "I want to go up after Rodney." So no one to go up. So I went up after him, and I do my stuff, and afterwards, Rodney is like, "Hey, kid, where you gonna go with all that stuff, all that cursing, and using the language he gave me?" Basically told me I wasn't shit.
Instead, the encounter turned into a lesson he would never forget. After watching Murphy's set, Dangerfield pulled him aside and bluntly told him that his act, full of profanity, racial humor, and edgy observations, wouldn't take him anywhere.
I'll tell you, with me, eating has replaced sex completely. In fact, I had a mirror put in over my kitchen table. The other night I was embarrassed. While I was eating, my kid walked in. I grabbed my napkin. I covered my main dish.
Where are you going to go with all that stuff? Dangerfield asked, essentially dismissing Murphy's style as unmarketable. For a young comic who looked up to Dangerfield, the critique was crushing. Murphy later described himself as crestfallen, stunned that a comedy giant had no faith in his future. But time has a way of rewriting stories. Just a few years later, Murphy became the breakout star of Saturday Night Live, then a box office powerhouse with 48 Hours, Trading Places, and Beverly Hills Cop. By the mid-1980s, he was one of the biggest names in entertainment. When he ran into Dangerfield again in Las Vegas, the older comic greeted him with a sheepish grin and said, "Hey, who knew?" It was Dangerfield's way of acknowledging that Murphy had proven him wrong.
Hey, my wife can't do nothing right. She can't cook, the worst cook in the world. Gave my kid alphabet soup. He spelled out help. What a lousy cook. I mean, how can toast have bone?
Rather than holding a grudge, Murphy laughed about the memory. The moment taught him that even legends can misjudge potential, and that criticism, no matter how harsh, doesn't define a career. It's a story that underscores Murphy's resilience and belief in his own voice, even when the greats doubted him. Have you ever been told you'd never succeed at something, only to prove them wrong later? How did that feel? Do you think comedy greatness is built on skill and craft, or is it something certain people are just born with? Number 3, the David Spade falling star joke. Of all Eddie Murphy's public feuds, none cut as deep as his clash with Saturday Night Live cast member David Spade.
Hey, Eddie Murphy, now I have to say that he was really funny in Dr. Dolittle. Yeah, but did you see Holy Man? Holy crap!
The bad blood began in 1995 when Spade was hosting his recurring sketch segment, Hollywood Minute. As part of the bit, Spade would make quick jokes about celebrity photos flashed on screen. When Murphy's picture appeared, Spade quipped, "Look, children, it's a falling star. Make a wish." What might have seemed like a throwaway gag to Spade hit Murphy like a sucker punch. In an interview with the New York Times, Murphy explained why it hurt so much. He reminded people that he had essentially rescued SNL during its early 1980s slump, becoming the breakout star who put the show back on the cultural map. "Yo, it's in-house. I'm one of the family, and you're fucking with me like that," Murphy said. He added that if he hadn't returned to the show during its weakest period, the show would have been off the air. To him, Spade's jab wasn't just a joke, it was a betrayal, one that even carried a hint of racism. The feud lingered for decades. Murphy avoided SNL for years, refusing to participate in major anniversary specials.
This is very bizarre, because I grew up on the show. It's bizarre to host it. I feel strange, and I'm very nervous because I haven't done this in a year and a half, so just bear with me. I said last year that when I left the show, I swore.
It wasn't until 2015, during the show's 40th anniversary celebration, that he finally returned to the stage, though he notably skipped doing a sketch.
Isn't this incredible night, this night? Everything's happening. This show is such a big part of who I am and my life, and I'm so happy to be back here. And
Eventually, Murphy and Spade made peace, and he also reconciled with producer Lorne Michaels. If someone you thought of as family mocked you on live TV, would you forgive them or cut ties for good? Number 2, the long-running tension with Bill Cosby. One of Eddie Murphy's longest and most public tensions was with Bill Cosby, a man often hailed as America's dad during the height of his career. Back in the 1980s, Cosby made it clear that he disapproved of Murphy's comedy. He criticized Murphy's use of profanity on stage, lecturing him on how comedians should present themselves.
Cosby. I'm not frightened of Bill.
No, nor should you be,
yeah. No, I didn't get any calls.
You did not hear from him. And this is something like doing stand-up is something that is...
For Murphy, who was then breaking ground with his raw and unapologetic stand-up specials, the criticism stung. In later interviews, Murphy recalled venting to Jerry Seinfeld about how shitty it felt to be scolded by Cosby. He said it was as if Cosby wanted to police his comedy, even though Murphy's unfiltered style was exactly what set him apart from the pack. Murphy's frustration was not just about the words themselves, but about the idea of being limited by someone who had already achieved enormous success. Fast forward to 2019, when Murphy returned to Saturday Night Live as host. During his monologue, he delivered a sharp joke that flipped the narrative. If you told me 30 years ago that I'd be this boring stay-at-home dad and Bill Cosby would be in jail, even I wouldn't have took that bet. Who is America's dad now? The audience roared, recognizing the irony of Murphy's comeback compared to Cosby's downfall. Cosby's camp did not take it lightly. His publicist issued a fiery statement calling Murphy a Hollywood slave and arguing that Cosby had paved the way for black entertainers like him. But Murphy never backed down. His joke wasn't just comedy, it was catharsis, a final word on a feud that had lasted for decades. Do you think Eddie Murphy was right to use comedy as revenge against Bill Cosby years later, or should he have let it go quietly? Number 1. Disillusionment with Richard Pryor. Eddie Murphy often described Richard Pryor as his hero, the man whose albums he memorized, whose fearlessness inspired him, and whose influence shaped his entire comedic identity. For Murphy, Pryor wasn't just an idol, he was the gold standard, the reason he believed a black comedian could reach the top of show business. That's why the revelation that Pryor didn't like him personally was such a crushing blow. In a 1990 conversation with Spike Lee, Murphy admitted that Pryor had told people, "Richard doesn't like me. He feels that the reason his is the way it is because I came along and fed his up." For Murphy, hearing that his idol thought of him as competition rather than as a worthy successor was devastating.
Connection, and we were very, you know, when you see those karate movies when you're a kid, we went home and cut out my mother's broomstick up and got a chain and had nunchucks and all that. And I took it to the next step. I was like, let's do it over again. So we got a Super 8mm. You don't have that here, nothing like that, do you? Good, because if you shoot that clip, roll the clip up. No.
He explained that he had paid homage to Pryor in countless ways, so learning about the resentment left him shaken. It was real weird to find out your idol hates you, he said. Yet Murphy never responded with hostility. Instead, he continued to show respect, even reverence, for Pryor's genius. He told interviewers that Pryor was the gold standard and that everyone who came after him was doing a shade of what he did. Even when the personal relationship soured, Murphy refused to diminish Pryor's impact on comedy. The disillusionment with Pryor remains one of the most painful chapters in Murphy's career, but also one of the most telling. It shows how admiration can coexist with disappointment, and how rivalry doesn't erase respect. For Eddie Murphy, Pryor was still the king, even if the king never wanted to share the throne. If your idol turned out to resent you, would you still admire their work? Or would it change how you see them forever? So, did Eddie Murphy ever really sit down and name a list of the 10 comedians he hated the most? The short answer is no. That headline was pure tabloid invention. But when you dig into Murphy's real-life experiences, you find a much more layered story. One that's richer, funnier, and more human than any clickbait list. If anything, Eddie Murphy's story proves that grudges don't define him. What defines him is resilience, the ability to turn pain into punchlines, and the wisdom to respect those who came before him, even when they didn't show him the same kindness. So now it's your turn. Which Eddie Murphy story surprised you the most? Was it his painful fallout with Richard Pryor, his feud with David Spade, or his heartfelt admiration for Red Fox? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the untold stories of Hollywood's biggest legends.